Tabletop will start after the following messages.
Some stories are epic tales for the ages, hours of content, sprawling narratives that pull you in and consume years of your life.
This isn't one of those stories.
Join the creators of Game Master Monday and Slay the Stars with a special guest from Lost Guide Games as they take you on a journey of hope and desperation.
Using the Arc Doom TTRPG system, Bella's Comet is nothing like you've experienced so far.
Because there's a twist.
And the clock is ticking.
Episode 1 of Bella's Comet releases on October 4th. Listen in on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tabletop. Today, we are looking ever upward. Jesus is just all right with us because we're talking about Pantheons! And as we dive into...
Finally got him. He finally used one of my intros.
Yeah, it's a Franco special, and...
It's a Doobie Brothers reference.
Yeah, of course. But I guess we should start with introducing us mere mortals in the podcast. Franco, you already have spoken. Who are you?
Hi, it's me, Franco, the demigod or something of a place.
Of Doobie.
Oh, sure, yeah, whatever.
All right, what about you over there?
It's me, devout follower of Persephone, Fausti.
All right, that's Daniel, by the way. You over there.
New cast member Fausti there.
Yeah.
I am Shade, and I have begun my apotheosis, I think.
Into a demon lord. All right, everyone. We're talking about Pantheons, how to build them, what they add to games. Why don't we start with, do you guys run Pantheons in your settings?
Hell yes.
Yeah. I do a weird thing that I will talk about now. I thought we were going to...
Great podcast material. I do a weird thing.
I thought we were all going to say a thing and then get into it. I didn't know.
Your thing is pretty long. I'll say what I do. It kind of...
And I don't, so this will be a pretty cool...
I just kind of freewheel it.
Yeah.
My players will come to me with their gods and hat in hand. And I'll be like...
I will say yes or no.
Yeah.
Please, sir, may I reveal my lord?
They will look up at me and say, please allow me to have this god. And I will look down and say, no.
Oh, no, I let them have it. I just don't have it.
I just do no work to manifest it.
Yeah.
And I don't do gods in my setting. Not gods that people know, because I feel like that takes the whole point of gods away, of being these unknowable powers that are like...
Exactly, yes.
Anyway, Daniel, you have a longer thing, so why don't you hit us with it?
So my thing is that I don't have gods in the sense of like Zeus or Odin or like knowable
like
people.
Personified
I don't have personified gods, but I have like gods that are like forces of nature. So like there's a god of love, but it's just the like embodiment of love. And you can worship love and you can like give it a name, or you can give it like masculine or feminine traits. But the fact is that the god itself is unknowable.
Wait, though. We have played in a game where the cult of Thor was a thing.
But he was from another world and had fallen in.
Right.
And was actually, though we never got to this, just one of the paragons, which the paragons were mortals that had taken divine essence and consumed it and had become godlike, but not true gods.
They were worshipped, though.
They were worshipped.
Yeah. What is a god?
Let's
Is it just something that people worship, or does it have to be like? What do you guys think?
I assume it's anything that's like omniscience or omnipotent, or that other omni word that means godlike.
Omnipresence.
Yes, that one.
For me,
that's like a Christian thing.
Yeah, totally. It's like monotheistic thing. I do think that for me, I know that there's like a huge, a pantheon of different religions that you can pull from to kind of inspire your games.
Pantheon of Pantheons.
As somebody who kind of came up and more interested in sort of the unknowableness of things, I just say like, yeah, there is like an acting force out there, like in Lakewood and everything. There were other planes and stuff that you guys kind of touched on, but you didn't really know how it all worked. And also the whatever was running the show was not doing so directly and like was never really a direct thing. And like the
Eru Iluvatar.
and like the creature you guys were trying to deal with was this like
Moldoth.
Yeah, Moldoth, which is this like multi-dimensional being. And
was that a god?
But even that, like he or it, whatever, was sort of like unknowable. Anytime you guys even like indirectly interacted with it, it was just like a small fraction of it. You know what I mean? It's just not like something.
So you would have thought of that as a deity or no?
No, I wouldn't have. Because like Moldoth didn't make the world or whatever. You know, like it's not.
So to be a god, you must make a plane or...
See, this is a good point, but like I think that for me...
So what is a god?
Yeah, what is a god?
I think it's very setting dependent. Right?
Totally.
Yeah. And...
Because even now thinking about it, it's like I have a lot of things that you could call gods.
Yeah, because you have like the Devas, you have the Paragons, and you had like the...
And then I've got like that cosmic essence that's the Eidolon.
I guess it's just like a named character that is holding the universe together as it's like being destroyed in one of our games.
the Eidolon.
Yeah. So it's
Eidolon.
like that is sort of what a monotheistic sort of god definition would include, right? Someone who has direct control over
But I guess I don't
reality.
consider like that presence a god because like she herself can't interact with like the material world. Like she's just on a cosmic scale and she's bound by cosmic scale level. So
I guess a god can be a lot of things. I think I like it as like something that you can something that's so powerful that one might worship it.
Yeah, I think that is a good and fitting definition.
Yeah, God is what you make of it.
And for me, like the thing about that really resonates is that people tend to worship things they don't quite understand.
Sure.
And so like for me, that is a huge part of if I'm going to have a god, I did finger quotes for the audio listeners, in my setting, I make it so that it is something that you are never going to be able to like converse with or have a direct understanding with, because that to me is like, as soon as you start understanding it, it loses all of its like power, I guess, like its majesty, because then you can start being like, well, if this person is like controls, all of time or whatever, and is like the god of the plane, it's like, okay, well, if they can control time, maybe I can like start using my powers, or I can use a wish spell to try to like make it so time can't be futzed with, and then like I can take over this godship or whatever, and I just don't want that in my game.
Yeah, well, it's also like, what can wish really do? Because like what with like the genie is controlling your wish, or if you're casting the spell wish, it's like from your own powers or wherever you're getting from. I don't know, it gets like you could try to do that, and then like the god of time is like, no, the wish doesn't work.
And I also think it's an interesting kind of dichotomy of in these games where you're starting to get more and more powerful to the point where you are essentially deities at level 20. And then there's like something above that, and like that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Level
And then
games
like,
are crazy. Yeah,
and if a god is threatened in any way, it's sort of like then they're not. To me, it feels like they're not a real god. But
that gets into, and this is why I love Pantheons, because you're talking about things from an omnipotence, omniscient and omnipresent perspective. Gods don't need to be that. Gods, like you said, Franco, need to be worshipped. And that is what makes a god. Because one of the things that I think that will trip up anyone who comes into the hobby, and in particular, we'll just focus on like core 5e D&D for a hot second here, because I always do, right? But yeah. So if anyone's kind of new to that hobby and they pick up the DMG and they start reading through the really fun chapter about the multiverse as a whole, and which gets into the pantheons and things like that, a question they're probably going to have is, so gods are probably like just the celestials and things like that, because that's kind of in our U.S. background. Those kind of words are like synonymous. But then they might see something about Tiamat, who is both a dragon and a fiend, being referenced as a god. well, wait, hold on now. How is a devil a god? So that might cause some confusion for people. Gods need to be worshipped, and that is and have an amount of power that is not attainable by or not prevalent.
But here I'm about to just puncture a little hole in that, because there's all of the gods in the Pantheon or whatever, but then depending on which D&D setting you're going into, there's also like, I think his name is like Om or something, who is like a controller of the universe. Ao, that's what it is.
So in Forgotten Realms lore, and in my own larger lore, if we ever get into our Ico bullshit, over deities are a thing. Like there are
Iluvatar.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Buffy and her uber vampires.
Yeah, or more like more like Tolkienian.
Is it like the gods of gods kind of thing?
Kind of, yeah.
But then it gets to me like, then why doesn't everyone
That's just an
worship
MLM.
The next one?
Well, because they can't be accessed. Like
right.
They're mysterious and unknowable or whatever, and they don't need to be worshipped.
So Ao, for example, did appear.
Or whatever. Yeah. Whatever you want.
Ao appeared for like a hot second on top of Mount Waterdeep in the Forgotten Realms canon to essentially go, hey, the spell plague, y'all fucked up. It's fixed. And then he just left. Like, people saw this guy, and they're like, I guess that's Ao. Anyway, I'm going to go back to worshiping Mistra or whatever. Yeah. So that's the other thing in these pantheons, these larger pantheons. Who cares if you're worshiping gods for specific reasons? I have an attachment to Zeus because of this. Yeah, Zeus is the chief god in that pantheon, but I have attachment to Zeus because I'm a big fan of lightning. I'm a creep. Yeah, I really like swan fucking.
Can I latch on?
Yeah.
So like, we're talking about the Forgotten Realms, and I know like that's very like D&D novel specific.
Sure,
but there's another like group of novels called the Craft Sequence, which has a very interesting system of like gods, which I pull heavily from, or I try to in Coronor, in which gods are just capable of providing you power, but they require that you feed your like a portion of your soul. And in this universe, like your soul is like fungible, I guess.
Yeah,
it's a fungible token.
It's a fungible token. You can you can spend part of your soul and you regain it when you sleep and eat and exercise and like go about your life.
Sure.
So you need to give some of your soul to a god, and then like your god will give you power back. But then they have to have enough worshippers to sustain themselves and provide. And so it becomes like a contractual worship where they need it to live and you need it to like.
It's so powerful. Good because it's like all like contract law basically. But with gods.
All the clerics are lawyers, and it's amazing, and I love it.
But again, all of that is a very Western view of contract law. Like it all comes from like the British sort of common law.
I have another novel, if I can just slip into that. The Raven Tower, which I think this is the third time I've mentioned.
You and
this.
I have talked about this on the podcast before.
Raven Tower is so good. It's like the gods are basically they're just like ancient things,
and they kind of define truth of the universe.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and they sort of speak things, and then everything that they say is true. So everything that they say has to be true. So they have to be careful about what they say. And so like a god could be like worshipped by like a certain city state or something, and that city state like wants to conquer stuff or whatever. And if that god declares like, I will destroy this enemy city state, then they have to have a lot of magic power behind them to be able to do that, and a lot of like worship and a lot of this other stuff. And so like a lot of prayers and stuff basically is how they get powered. And so when you kind of, I don't know, I think it's just like a really interesting way, because you're like mixing this like sort of like these gods have power because they say they have power. And so once it becomes a lie, that's how they die. Like that's how you kill a god.
Yeah, the thing that you told me that always kind of hooked me into it was that one god said like was trying to be careful about how much power it was imbuing into an item, which was a spear.
The spear,
yeah, and it was essentially like this like spear always hits whatever it's thrown at.
Yeah, always kills whatever it's thrown at.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then the guy's like, okay, and throws it at the god, and then the god has to make it true.
No, it was like it was like yeah, it will always strike true. So he would like throw it, and then his like, and then he was like, "This is too powerful. You have to give it back to me." And the guy was like, "Okay." And then he throws it back, and that's how he killed the god.
Yeah.
No, it's a great.
I mean,
it's a great little
That's
system.
a workman's
if we're talking
right
if we're talking novels, I've got to mention American Gods. Fantastic novel, really interesting, and I think this kind of gets into what you were doing with Thor, which Forgotten Realms also does similar stuff, wherein there are iterations of gods, and the gods are shaped based on the local worship. So there's like an American Jesus, and then there's like European Jesus, I mean, whatever, which is fun and interesting in of itself. So I think that this idea of this notion of gods being ideas given power by worship is, it's central, because that's something you're going to always see.
Yeah, I think that when you use these characters, that is the way to go about them, is to like obfuscate them from actually like ruling or like creating / running the universe. Like I feel like if you take that section away from it and be like, no, there's like, it is a mystery. People have all these things. There's a system that's in place. People don't really know. But like all these things are going around. They represent like core parts of mortal beings that are being worshipped, and people can choose and all that. I think that that's still interesting and like a good way to build a pantheon.
It's really fun.
Yeah, the thing that I get a little nervous about with pantheons is that, let's say you have a paladin in your game, and the paladin's like, I worship...
American Jesus,
Lord of the Cross or whatever, and like you,
Lord of Lacrosse, got it.
Lord of Lacrosse, great.
He's the lax bro,
little gator one,
and that's like, and then Jesus is like, hey man, I have a big lacrosse game, I gotta like really save up my energy, and then the paladin's like, oh, I don't have any power anymore, or it's like, hey, I don't agree with Cross Jesus anymore, and like, but then all of my mechanical abilities are tied up in this thing, and it feels just kind of weird that you kind of like lack character agency over something.
I have 2 points.
Yeah.
No, you do have character agency because you can choose to do that or not. If you understand that, if the DM presents you the consequences of that action, then I think that's fine.
This is also a chance for narrative, but I want to hear what Daniel has to say.
Because one of the things, like, it kind of like rules is written is like your powers don't have to come from a god. It can become your belief in like the core tenets of that god. Like if your paladin still really believes in lacrosse, his powers would
even if he doesn't believe in lacrosse Jesus,
he
still believes.
He's like, I have my pole arm. I can use nets really well.
These are the pole arm.
And he's like, so now I am a disciple of lacrosse Jesus, even though I don't believe in that guy.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. Just another point. Just throw it out there. Is again, like, narratively in like literature, there's a character whose name I can't remember. But she was a sort of a cleric in a comic called The Rat Queens.
I remember you really liking that.
She was an atheist, but she was like also a cleric. She had the healing powers, and when she was asked, it was like, "How do you have your divine powers if you don't believe in God?" And she would always just answer, "Because I'm goddess enough." And I think that is...
She's Knuff. Yeah.
Knuff. That's also like a very like important like maybe character trait or like something that you can put in the game. Like your characters are the divine power that they represent.
But then why have gods?
There.
You know?
Okay.
So exactly why I don't put them in the game.
So that's...
Just saying.
So
wow.
You would have a pantheon.
I guess Jesus isn't all right.
Lacrosse Jesus.
Because like the forces of nature and things like that, right? So,
shared ideals create the idea of a god.
Right. Exactly. I mean, it is because a religion in your TTRPG doesn't actually have to be a fully active thing, because religion in and of itself is an interesting wrinkle to add to your worlds, always, because unfortunately, religion can motivate people in a number of ways that aren't always good. And that can be a fantastic way to create various plots.
Shout out to my boy, Caleb Strada.
but for that, in that point too, it's like, I totally agree that like systems are more interesting usually to have in your game than like individuals that are doing a bunch of stuff. But I kind of find it being like, okay, religions are kind of inherently authoritarian because there's always like this peak that is the god that you're worshiping or whatever. And like if you're in a system that where you're a group of adventurers that are trying to take down a king or whatever, but they're all like worshiping a god, like that's just kind of... Well, does that make sense?
Yeah, but so for example, like you were saying with the rat queens, I'm goddess enough, right? The idea of like... My favorite cleric in 5e is the Peace Cleric. Peace Cleric rocks. Really cool mechanically. But also, that is an ideal that I, as an individual, can get behind all the fucking way. Of course I want to worship peace, the idea of peace. And any god, which would be like a champion of peace. So a lot of times I like to utilize my pantheons more in a traditional flawed gods kind of way.
Flat gads.
Flat gads. But also I like to look at them as, because I'm a big like planescapey kind of guy, I like to look at them as this is the pinnacle of what one could become, and then also people's adoration of something. So, you know, we live in a we live in a world, and us four specifically live in a country where we tend to have like a lot of really focus on like stars and bullshit like that. Yeah, individuals, and like I look at the gods as like that turned up to 20. Right. You know. So that's kind of how I look at it. And they can be very involved. But when was the last time you met, I don't know, Tom Cruise?
Yeah, it's just the one time.
Right, exactly. and he was not as...
He was shorter than I thought.
Yeah, not as tall
Lost
as you
my adoration.
David Spade, also way shorter than I thought he was going to be.
Yeah.
But I saw a BBC actor on in London. When
who was it?
I won't say. I'll say
off mic.
I don't know. She didn't seem to want to be talked to.
No,
so
I'm sure she
I want to
didn't.
respect her privacy.
Yeah, she's a human. That's fair.
There's one more thing I want to ask before we can like actually maybe we'll take a quick ad break and then we can go into like actually building and how you use them in your setting. But one question I want to pose for the table is, if you are building a god or you have a god in your game and a character that relies upon that, and we've talked a little bit about this with packs and warlocks, how like the difference of opinion between a player and a DM with the god or whatever can lead to like a lot of really, you know, frustrating moments, and also can be like a character be like, well, I guess I don't have control over my character's backstory or whatever because this god isn't who I thought they were or whatever. And it can lead to a lot of player character dissonance. How do you handle that if you're going to have a setting with gods? How do you handle that in a way where people feel as though they are able to, you know, be an active part in that instead of just...
Sometimes
like
life just has disappointments, you know? And
I mean,
you discover
like
things
Tom
about
Cruise
things
was
like
shorter
this.
than you thought he was going to be.
Yeah, but I already knew that he was a psychopath, and he is not a good person.
I mean, I grew up religious, and then like when I was becoming an adult, like, oh, this isn't what I was told it was going to be, and I had to change and grow.
Yeah,
and that's just a chance.
That actually sounds like a great arc.
Yeah,
exactly. What are you talking about? You just gave them a gift.
You know what?
Like when I made Daniel get divorced.
But here's the thing: is that like even at our table right now, there have been many times where like Savar is a great version of this. Yeah, Greg was like talking about his god in a way, and you were like, that is not how this works. This is not what this deity is like. And then in the end, he was like, oh, okay, I guess I don't know anything about them. I'll stop using that as like a character thing, right? Like it became like sort of like a dissonance between the player and the character in that there was just a lack of information because, you know, like these gods are hard to understand even in the best of times. And if you have a thing in your mind where you're like, Thor, God of Thunder, okay, I know what this is. I'm going to make a character that worships them. And then you're like, oh yeah, no, they fell through a temporal crack and they're not even like an actual god in that sense. Then there's just like a difference of understanding between people, and it can lead to just
but I think
weird
that
stuff.
that speaks to the humanoid experience where you have flawed understandings of things. Like, you know, you were asking why have gods at all when you could just have the forces of the universe, right? Because gravity exists. Yeah. There doesn't need to be a god controlling gravity, but being able to personify that in some fashion can give your players something to interact with. And learning that, oh, gravity doesn't work the way I thought it did. The god who controls gravity is really a downer, and I didn't know that.
Nice. And like
that was all I actually had. I just wanted to make that joke.
My god of freedom and the god of gravity are like constantly fighting each other.
But learning those things, it could be disappointing as a player, perhaps, but it should also be kind of disappointing for your character. Like, and I will say with Greg, he evolved that character as a result. Right. And Savar still loves his good old snake god. Yeah. He just had a different understanding.
Baby.
Yeah.
I have a suggestion for that. Is when they make the character and they say like, I want to worship this god or whatever, just like, I don't know, you can just be clear with them about it or something.
Yeah,
just do it better. That's my advice. Is like just DM better.
And that
is that good advice?
That relies on the players reading what you give them.
Well, don't make them read anything. Just have a
I'm gonna say sometimes the reading comes later than the creation.
No, because it's not.
DM better, but don't expect me to read the things you write for me.
Well, if it's a core part of the character, it should be a conversation and not just here's a list of like things or whatever. It's like, okay, let's talk about it because it's your character. Do you understand this about it? Because this is going to be like, this god is going to be a major entity or whatever in the story. So you have to understand what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, like, because I feel like it's like, well, yeah, I might not read that. I don't know.
and again, also sometimes you as a DM don't necessarily have the, like you said, you try and just accommodate and you're like, wouldn't it be interesting if we did something with that god right now? And so you develop something as a DM thinking this might be an interesting moment and not thinking about the fact that you might somehow undermine something.
Well, you could not, basically you would just like not contradict the things that you've already told them, or you could phrase it in a way that's like, this is what you know about this god, because like, what do you really know about this god?
Yeah.
It's like, what do you really know about like the person sitting next to you anyway?
Yeah, right.
It's like,
it's what they've allowed you to know kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. What they've allowed you to know. And that kind of is just like, I thought this god was this thing. It's like, yeah, they lied to you, or like somebody lied to you, or you just misunderstood, or whatever. I think that's more interesting.
Yeah, I think I'm still not 100% sold, because if you have a campaign that is not mainly dealing with gods, and then you have these like characters who kind of require gods to in their backstory or whatever. And then it becomes like these gods are present in the story, and then you have to accommodate for those in a way that like could sort of like make the setting really confusing.
Oh, I ran into this problem. Exactly. When we were doing the Gilded Canaries Season 1, I was like, hey, everyone, like I don't really have gods, so like try to keep everything loose. And then I had a player who's like, I worship Loth. And I was like, I literally don't like... All right, how does Loth work? Like, what is this idea of Loth? Yeah. Because obviously your warlock has to have a pact, and you've chosen a god that I do not have in my world. Right. So we had to like figure that out. I was like, okay, you believe this demonic force is called Loth. Yeah. And that is just, it's going to be like tied to your character. And again, like what you were saying, and those problems are like really session zero issues to work out and hammer in before you even start playing.
That's a good point. And I think that we should really dive into how we build this sort of thing as we get into our second act. So we'll be right back after these messages.
All right, guys, what do we want to talk about for the commercial?
Maybe the hot dog is a sandwich kind of a thing?
No, that's stupid, man. Everyone knows a hot dog is not a sandwich.
All right, what do you want to do then?
Let's talk about what everybody wants to talk about, UFOs.
So my toilet Mike Tyson was telling me the other day that you can survive a zombie apocalypse in a PetSmart.
Dude, are you okay?
Yeah, what was that?
I'm sorry. I don't even know what's happening right now. I've been listening to our podcast a lot recently, and it's a ton. What's going on?
All right, I'm just going to make this easy. Hey, y'all, we are the hosts of Master and Debaters, the podcast that debates all of life's silly questions. Join us every week as we present our hardest opinions on the softest topics. I'm Puck, and football is the worst sport.
I'm Alex, and a hot dog is absolutely a sandwich.
I'm Spencer, and the Beatles suck.
This is Master Debaters. Find us wherever you get podcasts, and as always, stay mad.
Yeah, I just wanted to start by telling you my favorite cleric that I ever made.
Okay.
Which was
Welcome back, everyone, by the way.
They don't need to know that. We're back already. What are you talking about? Welcome back. No, we're here. I'm talking, right?
Yeah, let's do it. Be polite.
Now I'm coming for you.
I just want to say thank you to our really wonderful listeners for coming back. That's all.
We wanted to give them praise.
Yeah, it was my cleric. What was his name? Oh, Weyerbaur.
Yeah, Weyerbaur.
Yeah, he was a cleric, and he worshipped it was a cyberpunk campaign that was and like the main antagonist was like
it was Disney.
Yeah, Disney.
What would we call it? Didney?
Yeah.
Like Disney.
Or is that what like
the Rat Pack or the Rat Squad or whatever?
Yeah.
Like police force.
Rat Guard?
Yeah.
But like my cleric worshipped a defunct corporation.
Yeah, and all
like
their
that.
advertising specifically.
Yeah. Anyway, that was and see, it's a concept.
Yeah, and I think that
a lot of fun.
That is something that I can get more behind as concept. I have a hard time with like speaking roles, because then again it's another thing about like how do you act as those gods in RPing, and like how do you like portray them, because then that can be like a huge issue. We talked about it with like warlock packs and stuff like that it's tricky. Not to say that you shouldn't do them. I'm just me personally, I am very uncomfortable with being able to do that, right? So I tend to be like, this is a universe, no one understands how it works. Okay, let's play.
Yeah, and for me, it's the opposite, because I want to peel back all the layers of the multiverse, so I need those gods to be activated.
Yeah, it's weird. I have fucked up with warlock packs before as a DM, and just been like, oh, this is like, I'm just like getting way too in the weeds about like this god and what they want from you and what they want you to do and stuff like that. And it's like, no,
yeah, that's always like, now you have like a hook
side
in
quest.
that player constantly. Yeah. So I always like, if you ever Warlock Pact, you did a job for them before, and now you just have that power, which we've talked about before.
Yeah, because Senfi was Hexblade, and I already forgot who her deity was.
I think
it was your mother or your father.
No,
someone
weren't.
from the court.
It was I think it was the Queen of Air and Darkness.
Yeah,
probably.
She's a cleric.
Yeah, probably Queen of Air and Darkness.
But like her blade or whatever was.
But no, I was thinking that because your parents were archfays and that.
No, they were just fays.
Just regular fae? Okay.
Yeah. Well, one of them was it doesn't matter.
One was a vampire lord and the other one was
it was something different.
Okay.
It was different.
I don't remember anything. Apparently, I'm just frustrated with myself.
But another thing too is like before we get into building, one last thing that maybe you guys can enlighten how you do it for me. But like, let's say you're halfway through a campaign, maybe 3/4 through a campaign. People are over level 10. You have these like psychotically powerful agents in your world. Why wouldn't a deity who has in some way, like at least it seems to have blessed you with enough like power or attention that you're able to do this stuff like crazy? It's like, why aren't they like, wow, this person is almost a god at this point, this is like my favored person, and is just like in your game all the time?
Well, that's like, I think like my gods aren't really aware of what's happening. They are existing on a higher scale in the material realm. It's just like, yeah, I need this to live. Like, I need this worship, I need this soul stuff, but like whatever's happening down there, like that's not involving me, because it's like the scale is just so different.
Yeah. Like for me, it just becomes very quickly, it can be like the main focus of the campaign. It's like there could be a really cool part of a campaign or a full campaign of like, you're getting very powerful and this god is like, you're getting pretty close to be a god, and people are like worshiping you instead of me now. And now you have your antagonist. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you just wrote a cool campaign.
Yeah, it's like a cool campaign, but it's like the main focus is now the Pantheon rather than having the Pantheon and like existing in your world.
I like how Nick keeps coming up with like wrenches to throw at us, but he just comes up with really cool ideas. What about this problem that is awesome? And now you get to take that for your campaign. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah,
great.
Do that.
Good job.
So I would say like yeah, you could have them be petty and threatened by you. You could have them take a special interest to you. Because we're obviously talking more about a D&D campaign when you're saying this. Right, yeah. Once you're getting into level 15 through level 20, it's supposed to be about extraplanar shit. Yeah. Because the little town, little quiet village, every day is like the one before there. So you don't need to.
The dripping disdain which Shade refers to perhaps his childhood.
Every time I say little town, it just pops in my head. Anyway.
Really oh, wait, that's the fucking Beauty of the Beast.
Yeah.
I forget. You fucking punk me every time with that shit. Oh, my God.
Anyway.
He needs a third one because he's done 2 already. He needs a third one.
Anyway, shit. They don't matter as much, right? They're important because every life is special and important, but also narratively, you've outgrown them.
He did not sound sincere at all.
I thought you were Daniel. Just like made a sound, and he's like, "No, they're not." That's what I thought you were trying to say.
No, I think he was just angry that I said it with no sincerity.
Yeah, but also to your point about why would the gods not like get involved. You guys remember Xena, Warrior Princess?
Yeah.
How often Ares tried to get involved and like put Xena down a peg?
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, the gods just become
minor
NPCs.
Annoyances.
They're there. They're trying.
That's like the key word. They should be NPCs, and your NPCs should be interesting, flawed fuck faces.
Yeah.
Another thing is, so like in the work campaign, I essentially wanted to make sort of a grim, darky sort of like city state that is like a mega city one sort of thing, like this huge city that is ruled over by sort of this god emperor.
Yeah, I don't really want you to say grimdark. I kind of own that in this case. So.
That's right. TM for that.
TM Daniel 2020.
So I think Joe Abercrombie would want to work with you.
But yeah, the thing there is like I have very purposefully been like, this deity that everyone worships, it's like the religious figure. You guys can have whatever opinions you want. This is how the system works around that person in the game. Like that. This is how this has affected people and affects the society around you. And then I kind of leave it at that. Like I don't really say like, hey, you are drawing power directly from the God Emperor. He whispers in your mind or whatever. This is something
that's awesome.
All your problems are cool.
No,
I actually don't like these things.
But
that are cool.
You don't have to have them be active agents. Yeah. In fact, the more interesting thing is for them to sometimes just be mysterious. Like in Forgotten Realms, I said that Ao, the over deity, Ayo. Popped up on fucking Mount Waterdeep to be like, y'all fucked up, it's all fixed. But like the average person
notes. But this is the thing that makes no sense to me is like this guy pops on the top of the mountain, fixes the entire world in which the current gods could not do it.
Yeah, because they're the god.
Yeah, then why is everyone just worshiping the god?
Who's to say that they're not? Because you're limiting it to a monotheistic perspective. You can worship any number of gods and recognize that, like, again, just kind of using it as like a celebrity kind of thing. I recognize that, like, there's a certain
Selena Gomez worship,
right? Yeah, there's a hierarchy of Chris's. Yeah, you know, one of these Chris's is better than the other, and one of them is worse than the other. Yeah,
Chris Jesus.
You know how Coke is awesome, but like some people just prefer
Pepsi,
Fanta.
Oh Jesus!
But Fanta's owned by the Coca-Cola company, and you're like, why don't you just drink Coke if you like Coke company products?
Yeah, Nick.
Yeah, but it's I like Fanta better.
But
honestly, that's a weirdly...
I'm still supporting Coke.
I actually
through
love,
Fanta.
But that would be like
metaphor.
But that would be like if the Pantheon of the Coca-Cola company was then visited by another like
by Pepsi.
By Pepsi. Was like Pepsi came in and was like, all right, new Coke fucking sucks.
No, that's a different thing. That's like
and then everyone's like,
what are you talking about?
That's the best.
No, you've broken it. You've broken it.
No, you're wrong. This is not not what you mean. Like I'm worshiping 7-Up. I'm worshiping Fanta, whatever.
Yeah.
But then like, oh no, all of the CO2 has exploded and we're like gonna die. But then Coke shows up and we're like, whoa, who's Coke?
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm gonna fix everything. I'm on top of Mount Waterdeep. I fix everything.
Yeah.
I brought CO2 back.
I brought some more CO2 to like, carbonate everything again. And then they leave. And then people are like, should we worship Coke now? Like some people maybe do, but some people still like 7-Up and
Sprite.
Sprite.
In my brain. This has helped me a lot, Franco. Thank you. This is
Franco credit.
It was his idea. I was just trying to explain it.
Here's how now I can view it, and we can then get into how we build Pantheons, because it's taken me so long to get there. Is that in this example, which you two have done a really great job putting into my brain, it's sort of like all of the Fantas and the Sprites and all of those. Some people just prefer those. They make their lives better, right? They make their life actively better, and like maybe there's a Coke shortage, and Coke is just not in your life. You're in a region that Coke is not supplied, and like you don't experience it in your daily life.
There aren't any temples there for some reason.
And then sometimes, and you're like, oh, Coke comes and fixes the CO2, but I still like the thing that actually
Pepsi's
changes my life.
The
thing that changes my life on a day-to-day basis is Fanta. So I'm gonna just keep going with I'm gonna keep buying Fanta.
Right.
I accept that this is a thing that works, and I am also going to say I'll never put it in my system.
Okay, so
that's fine.
So, but
Nick, I don't know what we're doing here anymore. I don't know what this episode's about.
Yeah, we're talking about sodas, right?
So like the soda god parallel.
The first 80% of the episode is trying to convince you that Pantheons can be included in the game.
I just am saying that
he's drinking Coke right now. He's literally got a Coke in his hand.
1 second.
It's great audio. Stop that.
Thanks, Coke.
Did you guys hear that fizz? No, this is the thing, is that I just find Pantheons very hard, because then they always become the focus of the game.
See, but
not if you DM it differently.
Yeah.
Every idea that I gave you guys of like, oh, this is good, you're like, oh, that's a really cool plot hook. It's like, but I don't want to talk about God.
Then don't write it into your game.
Just don't put it in the game.
Yeah, just don't. What's happening?
We solved it. We fixed it in one.
We thought that initiative was going to be bad, but this is
Where does Spindrift come in the Pantheon?
I don't know.
Is that like a lower god
it's
or something?
It's a different planet. I think they seem to be independently owned.
Oh,
I was
nice.
actually looking to see if they were.
It's a new cult that has come up.
It's a demon. Yeah.
So, but again, you can have your gods removed.
Yeah, put us back on the rails,
You
Jade.
can have your gods removed. You can have, and then you can focus on the religion. But regardless of whether your gods are removed or if they're very active, you do still need to build something. So essentially,
let's talk about that. How do we do it?
So you need to determine, okay, what
Cross
is it?
Jesus, take the
what
wheel.
is it that your people believe? Why is it they believe? And is that accurate? Those are 3 things you should be asking yourself for as a GM building out a pantheon. It could be simple, and it could be just like, okay, what do they think about trees? Like, what's the deal with trees, guys?
Fucking love trees.
Yeah.
love trees.
And you can decide, okay, there is a god of nature. Cool. And you need to then kind of determine how much you as a GM really want to invest in that. And it does not have to be something you invest in. But you could just say generally, yeah, there is a god or gods of nature.
I have always liked the idea of this particular forest has its own sort of godlike spirit. Like I am working on something that hasn't been played yet called the Moth Witch, who is like the deity of a particular forest. And I think that that's like you don't have a god of forests, but like each forest has a god that people sort of like give life to.
I love that.
This is fucking cool.
Yeah. And you just the way you did that is you determined that there needed to be a system behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And centering your people is going to be around, centering your pantheon around the people themselves and around the mechanics of the world is really the core of creating a pantheon. It has to be, you could just say that there are gods and that's cool, but there needs to be something that they are latched onto, because otherwise they are worthless.
Just for the people at home, everyone keeps giving me these like side glances of whenever they say something, they look at me to see like, is he gonna fly off the handle again?
I still can't get over you bringing up Pepsi.
Yeah. Oh God! All hail our Pepsi lords. No, I think that sounds good. If you were to include a Pantheon into your game, the way that
I guess, or whatever.
The way that I've always dealt with it is just like willpower, and it's the same thing with ideas. Is like if you believe something to be true enough, and you insert your will over the reality of a world, that is what manifests whatever.
Yeah, that's enough.
Yeah, that's been my workaround.
And to me, that's magic.
Yeah.
That's the creation of magic. It is your will.
Yeah.
And
Magic Jesus.
So
do you guys want to just like, we're getting towards the end of it. We've sort of been all over the place. Do we want to like do a quick, let's build like a quick 4-god pantheon?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Why not? Let's.
We already started. We already got Lacrosse Jesus. We got
let's start fresh.
Fanta Buddha.
Fanta Buddha.
Oh, Christ. Oh, my God. I don't know why that resonated so deeply in me, but Phantom Buddha is the best thing you've ever said.
That's true.
Oh, my God.
All right.
I am become Coke, destroyer of worlds.
Let's just go through. Let me just go through something real quick. A few things.
We've gone through a lot of things.
I know, but I just want to say this real quick.
I'm sweating right now.
Yeah, it's really hot in here.
It's hot, and I've been screaming.
When you consider creating any kind of gods or religion, you should consider whether it's going to be a monotheistic system or a pantheon. You should consider whether that, if it is a pantheon, whether it is a loose or a tight pantheon. So a loose pantheon is a pantheon that doesn't have like a lot of interconnectivity. So let's say that, you know, your god of nature, your god of war, your god of time, I don't know.
So is it just like big ideas, like instead of... Sorry.
No,
like,
go ahead.
No, because you're saying like god of war, god of nature, whatever. These are like big concepts. So it is like a
god of sailing.
Is there like in a loose pantheon? Is it like, hey, like everything, every idea
Here's some
has
cool
a god,
shit.
or is it just like big ideas?
That can happen in loose or tight pantheons, but specifically like those gods aren't like, they're not from the same family. They're They're not really talking to each other a lot.
They're not like brothers and sisters. They're not hanging out.
They're not in relationships. They're just doing their thing. But with a tight pantheon, it's going to be something more like you know, your Norse religion, your Greco religion, your Egyptian pantheons.
Where everyone plays like a very specific role.
They have that specific role, but
there's a family dynamic.
There's a family dynamic or a lot of like past history with each
stories.
Do pantheons always have to have sort of like the sort of, because even pantheons sometimes can feel a little bit monotheistic in that like Zeus is like the king of Olympus or whatever. And like everyone has different powers, and like Poseidon's like, hey, there's way more in the ocean. I actually am like ruling over more than Zeus, who rules over the air or whatever. But
that's just the patriarchy.
But it's sort of like, well, I guess that's what I'm saying is that in monotheistic religions, there's usually like a top-down sort of thought to it. Do pantheons
I think you mean polytheistic?
Sorry.
There's in polytheistic religions there's a top down. Because in monotheistic you're just gonna have
there is also still that top down. You're at the bottom.
Like priests and whatever, and then the worshippers, and then there's the kind of. So do pantheons inherently have like a hierarchy, or is
they can? You don't necessarily have to. I think that fits more in a tight pantheon than a loose pantheon, because a loose pantheon, just by definition, they're not a corporation. They're not a
I feel like the loose pantheon is maybe a little bit more like the primordial gods from Greek
a good way
mythology.
To look at that. Yeah.
You know, like
Titan type stuff?
Yeah, like Titans, Uranus.
Or I guess like you were talking about, like
Uranus.
this forest has a god, that river has a god, like the gods are very like local and not sort of like all in one place. I mean,
they could
together.
Yeah, they could even be local, or like they could be local, like, and then kind of loosely related, or local and like this forest and this forest hate each other.
So it's sort of like more of like a Japanese slant on it, where like villages could have guardian spirits and like that. Also rivers could have shit like that, and like all that kind of thing. So
it makes me think of Noragami, which is one of my favorite animes.
Yeah.
And then there's like that god who's like kind of he doesn't have a shrine, or like his shrine is like really impoverished or something, and he just does like
Oh no, because he's trying to build one.
Yeah, he's trying to like build a new shrine, and so he like just takes odd jobs for like 5 yen or whatever.
But no one can remember him because he doesn't have a shrine.
Yeah. It's really good. You can have that too.
Man, it's like going back to one of our original tenets of tabletop. Everything is
anime.
That's true.
Everything is anime.
Man, first episode callback.
The manga, the anime, and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, exactly.
There's your Pantheon. We made it.
Exactly.
Done.
So yeah, I mean, again, so we're considering if as a GM, if you're going to create some sort of gods in your game. Monotheism versus pantheism, what type of pantheon you're going to have, and then maybe consider, are there competing religions, and how does that tie into the exactly?
Pepsi
is there a
Coke,
Pepsi
baby.
to your
Sierra
Coke?
Mist just hanging out,
and how does that
No more
necessarily
Sierra
tie
Mist.
in?
It's now something else.
Oh my god,
It's called like.
this guy's obsessed with Pepsi.
It's like 7 or something. I don't
Really?
know. Yeah, they changed the brand. It's like a completely.
What about
Sierra
7 Up?
Mist is no more. 7 Up's still a thing.
So they
Is 7 Up Pepsi or Coca-Cola?
God, I don't. No, yes, it's Pepsi, and Sierra Mist was Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, I got that all mixed up.
Anyway,
Welcome
Yeah, it
back.
was discontinued in January 9th of this year.
Welcome back to Soda Pop, the tabletop podcast.
3 days
all
after
about
January
sodas.
6th. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so.
Ooh, I don't know. Yeah. was Sierra Mist at the Capitol that day?
This was recorded 3 years ago.
Shane is like this.
He's so
episode,
bad. He's trying to get us out of this episode. He's been trying to get us out of this episode for years.
another thing you have to consider about pantheons is blessings and curses, which I think this episode is both. Because we've had a lot of fun, but it's fucking cursed. We're stuck here, guys.
Yeah, we had to edit something out.
We're in a liminal space right now.
We really are.
Both in and out of the episode.
But yeah, competing religions is another thing to kind of think about, because that can be, and I really enjoy bringing competing religions.
50% off across the street.
Exactly. But I mean, like
bargain blessings across the street.
Absolutely. Like,
what if your religions didn't have wars, but they just had like a field day where everyone had to compete in like
fun. Like egg
three-legged races?
the fucking Olympics.
Oh, that's literally the Olympics.
Yeah.
Okay, Danny invented the Olympics.
I invented the Olympics. Good job, me.
I mean,
Created Daniel Faust TM 2023.
but the competing religions doesn't have to be like, it could be an issue where, okay, there's a whole other pantheon that has come in because spheres are colliding, or it could be like literally like, yeah, but I worship fucking
Sierra Mist.
End of sentence. I worship fucking.
I worship
Football
right.
Jesus.
But I worship Zeus. You worship Hades specifically, and like we don't like each other as a result. You know, that's always fun. And then you should probably consider a little bit about your multiverse as a whole, but specifically afterlives. Like, you don't have to have rewards for your your gods to dole out for worshiping them, but sometimes that's nice. And then finally, is it a present and active pantheon, or are they distant and mysterious?
Yeah.
Or are they all dead?
Or are they all dead? Which I actually fucking run.
Just like in the craft sequence.
Yeah. And one of my campaigns that I totally am going to bring back one day, and I have talked about a few times.
He's shaking his head now.
I mean, it is. It's going to come back. I just need like...
Again, just a very firm shake of the head no.
I'm trying, guys. That actually, they're dealing with all sorts of issues, misinformation about their gods. The gods are actually dead, and the player characters are actually the reincarnations of those gods. Like that's
fun.
A central crux of that game.
You mean incarnation, but that's fine.
No, if they died and they came back, that'd be a reincarnation.
Yeah, but if they're...
It's just a new incarnation.
It's like Jesus.
Yeah, they are incarnation. They were reincarnated.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not incarnation in the sense, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Not
okay.
resurrection.
Oh.
No, they're not resurrected because like they were born into their perceived mortal lives. Like a central thought is that...
Like an isekai, but for gods.
Sure.
Yes.
I was going to just say like a god...
Everything is anime.
A central tenet might be like, you can't kill a god, right? But no, these gods did die. But because of the way that they set up the reincarnation cycle, instead of like you go to a paradise, you were just put back into the energy and brought back as a snail next time or something. They also entered that reincarnation.
So I'm a snail, so what?
Exactly. They also entered that cycle and they eventually find out that their gods are dead and they are their gods.
For people who are not weebs, that is a very funny anime manga joke.
It was good. It was good. I'm just fucking trying to get through it, guys.
I know, honestly, I gotta say, listen, everyone, good show, long show. We're approaching an hour, and we have cut a good portion of this episode out.
I have a rec.
Yeah.
A pamphlet of Pantheons by what's his name? Oh, James Holloway.
Okay, cool. Another thing I will say for somebody who's not like super into building present pantheons, I really resonate with the sort of like removed mysterious pantheons.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's how I.
I really resonate with the Coca-Cola thing.
Yeah, but we don't know who makes Coca-Cola, but we still have Coca-Cola. Right.
Coke Jesus.
Coke Jesus. Different god. But I will say that, like, for me,
That's a different Coke Jesus.
For me, the thing that really makes gods and afterlife stuff is that's like a whole nother episode is afterlives. I think that's a really interesting topic. But, like, one thing that I like is mystery in that kind of stuff is it also allows somebody who hasn't written out a full campaign to be nimble with how things work, because you can say, like, this is what they need to know now. Oh, they're starting to get a little bit more, like, you know, involved in the bigger workings of things. They need to know this now.
Just put the rail in front of the train. Yeah. Just keep going.
Where's the train starting to go? We're gonna go that way. But yeah, I think that also is an approach you can take where you say, like you said, here are the core tenets of how I want this to work that they will know. I don't even have to decide on the rest of it yet. Then you can, when it becomes relevant, build the rest of it to keep, like Franco said, and he hates this idea, but you can, what were you gonna say? And you can sort of keep expanding out and building something that they can dig their teeth into as they get to that point.
No, I think this is a good idea, and this is how I do it.
Oh, okay, cool.
Because remember at the beginning, because you asked everybody, and then we sort of got lost in the weeds.
Beginning was a year ago.
I said. Yeah, no, I don't really think about pantheons either, but I allow them.
I don't remember that.
I said I agree.
There's a whole bit about hats and hands.
Does anyone remember that?
I remember.
Anyway, let's end the show now.
Yeah, Stephen came to me hat in hand with the goddess of the moon, and I said, okay.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. I agree with Franco.
I also agree with Franco.
Hey, that's great.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great.
Well, I disagree with me, so.
All right, everyone. I'm sorry that I was the antagonist of this episode.
That's my job.
Yeah, if you're still listening at this point, congratulations. You can join our Discord where you can have conversations like this with us all the time if you like. Just head to our website, tabletop.com, hit that Discord button, and you will be invited to our elite group of cool people. Also, Tabletop is created by us, but is...
We're a proud member of the Helios Network, which is for regular people
making regular podcasts.
That's right. That's it. They are sort of the Coca-Cola company to our podcast. They are part of our monotheistic sort of patrons.
Polytheistic.
I think we're more of like a flavor of a, small local. I think that's the vibe.
We're like
small
Moxie.
Yeah, we're like a small local soda.
And after this episode, Helios Network will not want us to say there.
Soon to be an independent podcast.
Not by choice. They're gonna be disappointed.
The first soda sounds good.
Podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, before we get exiled, you should go check out some of their other shows. They make more sense than this one. Like Banter and Such, a great culture podcast for the culture savant in your life. Go check it out. All right, everyone, let's fucking wrap this shit up. Goodbye.
Bye.
Jesus Christ.